All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today is Monday, July 21st, 2025, Missile Monday. And I have this article from The Economist, and it reads, Underground with America's Nuclear Missile Cruise. So I'm just going to read this article and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. It says, the cost of replacing aging ICBMs is soaring as a new arms race looms. It says, there are no big red buttons in the underground bunkers or capsules that control America's nuclear missiles. Instead, launching an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, involves decrypting and verifying orders, receiving the appropriate codes, and then many hands turning keys. It's like many hands turning many keys and levers at the same time. 2 per officer or missiler or missileer, 2 missileers per capsule, and at least 2 separate capsules must act in unison. The redundancies ensure that no rogue missileer or crew can fire a weapon or block a launch. So that's all that's going to let me read, without having to, pay for it. But pretty much, again, you see that, what the United States military is doing, or if not the military in general, well, yeah, this is really a military thing, but clearly what, the U.S. is doing, they're trying to replace their old, missiles that were, active, with the new ones. I forget, the exact ones, but I know they still have, the Castle Bravo missiles, active. I forget the current ones that they have, in stock. But again, they're trying to, pretty much update, their arsenal and make, the necessary, replacements, for the ones that have just been sitting. Because again, man, the U.S. and Russia have been in an arms race, and, which they're still in an arms race, man. Because out of the current nuclear armed nations, Russia and America possess the most, missiles. Excuse me, Slovakia. And between these two nations, Russia has more than America, which is biblical prophecy, because it's prophesied that Russia is going to take down America, regardless of, you patriotic Americans, if there's still any left, America's not going to win this war. America may have, won World War I, and especially World War II, when it dropped those atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It may have won those 2 wars, but now these other nations, they possess the same technology, so they're no longer afraid of this place. So it's the reason why, again, you have these different nations that are gearing up for war, while they're, putting all their resources, or not all of them, but a majority of their resources toward, their military, toward, building up their nuclear arsenal. And you clearly see they're still trying to stop Iran from, developing a nuclear weapon, which, my personal belief, I believe they have one, or some, I believe they have a nuclear weapon. They just, have it hidden somewhere. Just from personal belief, I'm not saying this is fact, but again, it would make sense that they do, since they pretty much have, enriched uranium up into a certain percentage, to develop a nuclear weapon, So I'm not going to make this one too long. I'm going to start with the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, and verse 16. It says, Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy. And indeed, man, the modern day smith would be the scientists and physicists that are behind, creating these nuclear missiles, because what does a blacksmith do? They create weapons of war, And this what these scientists are doing, man. They're creating weapons of war, and not just any weapons, weapons of mass destruction, because these missiles, just one missile alone, has the capability of doing a lot of damage, man. These weapons are extremely powerful, which have the capability of literally destroying the earth, but the entire earth will not be destroyed, you know. So again, that's the smith that bloweth the coals, and the instrument for his work. The waster to destroy is the nuclear missiles, in particular the warhead, because that's the part of the missile that does the damage, the waster to destroy being the ICBMs themselves, because we clearly see that, this is not going to be a traditional war, how you would have ancient warfare where you have men on one side of the battlefield, a group of men on the other side of the battlefield, charging each other, in the center, having weapons of war, swords, spears, shields, bow and arrows, the different, handheld weapons, hand-to-hand combat, guerrilla warfare. It's not going to be like that, during World War III. Though I always make mention that, you will have ground troops that are going to be going to war with each other, but this coming Third World War is primarily going to be fought with these nuclear missiles, man, because they're going to be shot from one end of the earth unto the other, So I'm going to get the book of Isaiah, chapter 9 and verse 5, and it says, "For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire." And right, man, just, how I explained, man, this isn't going to be like traditional warfare, was fought. This is going to be, advanced warfare, if you will, That's that burning and fuel of fire, man. These missiles are going to be launched, from one country and land in another. And, they're going to be launched from the east, and land in the west. They're really going to come from all over, because these different nations that are at odds with America, not just Russia, but, you also have China, North Korea, the different Arab nations, that are going to come up against this place, man. So you're going to have missiles coming from different directions to hit this land, man. So still in Isaiah, I'm going to get I'm going to get Isaiah 13 and verse 4. It says, "The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the hosts of the battle." And right, man, that noise that is speaking of in this verse is talking about the missiles, because again, there's going to be numerous missiles that are going to be launched at the same time. You're going to hear them coming, and it's going to make a loud noise. You're going to hear, that rocket propulsion system that's going to be guiding these missiles. You're going to hear them, you're going to hear them before you see them, because there's going to be because there's going to be so many, you're going to hear them. It's going to make an extremely loud noise, man. That's the noise of a multitude, and just like it describes in other books, sounds like, horses, running. So that's how loud it's going to be, man. But what are they going to do? Verse 5, it says, "They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of his indignation, to destroy the whole land." And right, man, that's exactly what these missiles are going to do. So for example, missiles are going to be launched from Russia, and they're going to hit here in America, So whatever particular missiles Russia has aimed at America, they're going to hit, once they're launched, because regardless of whatever happened, if Vladimir Putin, perishes, in the midst of this war, or, somehow, Russia has what's known as, the dead hand system, which, I'm still going to do a lesson on that, Lord willing. But they have a dead hand system. So if something happens to, Putin, and missiles are launched towards Russia, is going to, if they don't get a response within a certain amount of time, then I think it's going to go to, the general. If somehow the general dies or, perishes somehow, again, they get a response within a certain amount of time, then those missiles are going to launch on their own. Hence the dead hand, because what they describe it as, is going to launch semi-automatically, so if no one is able to launch the missiles themselves, they're going to launch on their own. If missiles are headed toward Russia, which I, again, personally believe that Russia is going to get hit, but obviously it's going to be built back up. These different nations, they have these missiles may get hit, but we know for sure the two confirmed places that are going to be, hit and destroyed are Russia, not Russia, slip of the tongue, America and Israel. The two lands that are for sure going to be destroyed. America is going to be left completely desolate, pursuant to Isaiah chapter 34. It gives a vivid description of how America is going to look, after the destruction takes place, when that fire dies down. And the land of Israel, because obviously, it's our homeland. Jerusalem is going to be built back up, because again, Jerusalem is going to be the headquarters, of the earth. It's going to be that, primary city, man. Our cities, not just our city, but our land as in general, is going to be made beautiful again. Just like the Lord said, he's going to make Jerusalem, a praise in the earth, talking about the people, but again, man, the Lord is going to beautify the land of Israel yet again. So I'm just going to grab a couple more. That'll be it. It's the book of Malachi, chapter 4 and verse 1. It says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch." So right, man, that's the day that's coming. World War III. It's not going to leave anything, man. America is going to be completely destroyed, man. So everything that Esau, put his time and resources in to build this place up is going to be destroyed, within an hour, pursuant to Revelation, the 18th chapter, man. It gives a description of how America is going to literally be destroyed in 1 hour, man. That's all it's going to take the Lord, to destroy this place, because we know on a small scale, Russia is going to destroy America, but on a much grander scale, our Lord Yahweh Shai, along with the angels, are going to destroy this place, So that's the day that's coming. World War III, is vastly approaching, And as I made mention of it, I'm going to get the book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 9. It says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I'm strong and right, man." Just like I made mention earlier, you have these different nations that are gearing up for this third world war, that are exhausting their resources into, their nuclear arsenal or their military in general, man, because they know, the time that we're in. They know a third world war is coming, and they're ready to take this place, America, down, So that's the time that we're in. There's a couple more, and then that's it, man. So I'm going to get the book of Revelation, chapter 7 and verse 1. And it says, "And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree." All right, these are 4 literal angels holding back the 4 winds, which the 4 winds represent the destruction, this coming third world war that's going to take place, because there's an appointed time when this war is going to take place. As we know, we get excited when we hear about certain things, pertaining to World War III that happened in the news. But we know that, again, prophecies have to happen in, their order. We're still waiting for the prophecy of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 16 to 18, where it speaks of the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip. We're still waiting for that, prophecy to come to pass, where the majority of people, especially here in America, get it. People all around the world are going to get that device, but the mark of the beast has to, be made mandatory. That prophecy has to come to pass first before this destruction comes, Verse 2, and I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living power, and he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our power in their foreheads. And right, also this destruction won't come until the elect is sealed as well. So once the mark of the beast comes to pass and the elect is sealed, then this war is going to take place. So I'm going to end it with this. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 9 and verse 15. And it says, and the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. And right, man, there's a particular hour, day, month, and year when this war is going to take place. There's a set time when this is going to happen. And it says for to slay the third part of men, because you have three classes of men on the earth. You have the sons of God, which today are the biblical Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the tribe of Judah, all the way down to the tribe of Issachar. You have the sons of men, which are, these different heathen nations. And then you have the sons of the wicked, which are the nation of Edom, you so-called white people, because that's mainly who the destruction is for. You Edomites, because Esau, you came into power by way of violence. So you're going to be taken out of power by way of violence, So this destruction is for you, and 2/3, of the nation of Israel, you wicked Israelites, those of you that don't die in Jacob's trouble, either by the famine, getting put to death by the sword, getting attacked by the wild animals, however have you, you're going to take part in this destruction as well, for your wickedness, because you refuse to repent and turn back to the Lord, so you're going to get caught up in it. And then as always, as I say, man, you heathens over here that, aren't able to go back to your homelands before America is destroyed, you're just over here to die. You're just collateral damage, That's literally all you're over here for, to make a little money and die, So just understand that this place, America, is destined for destruction, and there's nothing anyone can do to try to stop it. So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I say Shalom.